Many TOEFL students have two problems. They struggle to understand the TOEFL reading and listening passages, and they don't have advanced vocabulary for TOEFL writing and speaking. The solution to both problems is to expand your vocabulary. There are words that frequently appear in TOEFL listening and reading, so if you know them, you won't have difficulty understanding the passages. And there are words that make your score go up like this in TOEFL writing and speaking. In this video, I'm going to teach you 44 words you must know to score 100 or higher. By the end of this video, you will be equipped with a broad vocabulary that you can use in your TOEFL test. If you are going to take your TOEFL soon, check out my TOEFL courses. There, I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to give high-scoring answers. And of course, we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link to my courses in the description box. And now get a paper and a pen. For each word you know, you get 1 point. Comment below how many words you know. For example, 20, 35 or 44. Let's get started. First, let's have a look at a word that you will need for all sections of the TOEFL. Claim. Claim means to say that something is true. This word is really important for the speaking and writing sections because you can use it in place of said. It shows you have a range of vocabulary and sounds really academic. For example, you could say, the professor said that the albatross is the largest bird that flies. Vary your vocabulary this way. The professor claimed that the albatross is the largest bird that flies. Sometimes a person doesn't directly say something, but hints at it. For example, if you ask, "Do you want to have pizza?" and the person replies, "I want a hamburger." What does that mean? It means that the person probably doesn't want to have pizza, right? You can say, "She implied that she did not want to eat pizza." Imply is a really useful word for reporting information that's not directly stated in TOEFL speaking. It's also a good clue for solving questions in the reading section. If a question says, "What is implied in paragraph 4 about?" then you know that the answer is not directly written. You have to guess based on the information in the paragraph. That will help you select the correct answer choice. Here's another word for imply, suggest. You probably know that suggest means that you think something should be done, like Tom suggested eating dinner. Suggest also works great to show that a person means something, but doesn't actually say it. For example, the professor suggested that dinosaurs did not die because of an asteroid. That means that the professor didn't actually say it, but gave the idea that he thinks it's true. It's good to know that words have more than one meaning. If you use the less common meaning correctly, you can really boost your TOEFL score. Clarify means to make something easier to understand. It's often used when someone is confused. "Would you please clarify?" means "please explain." You can use it when summarizing a conversation or lecture too. Using my earlier example, the woman clarified that she did not want pizza because she had it for lunch. In other words, the woman wanted to show that she wasn't rude. She had a reason for wanting a hamburger. When you are talking about a person's argument, you need to say their reasons. Cite is an academic term that means refer to a source. For example, the professor cited a letter by Benjamin Franklin. This is especially useful when summarizing in TOEFL speaking task 3 and 4. Next comes specify. If you explain something with no room for doubt, you are specifying something. I can say, the employee manual specifies the type of clothing you can wear to work. In other words, you don't have any questions about what you can wear or not to work. This is another awesome verb to replace said. You're probably wondering why I'm giving you so many. There's a reason. The thing is, you have to use the words in the correct situations. If I change the sentence to a different verb, look how the meaning changes. The employee manual implies the type of clothing you can wear to work. That means the manual doesn't write out what clothes you can or cannot wear. You have to guess based on what the book does say. Therefore, you need to practice these words for said. If you use them correctly, you really can boost your TOEFL score. But you can also lower your score if you use them wrong. Here's a word with two very different meanings. Speculate. One meaning for speculate is gamble, like the company speculated its profits on building a new factory. In other words, the company spent its money in the hopes that the new factory would earn money. That's not the reason this word is on my list though. Instead, it's a way to say think about or wonder about. For example, the professor speculated about the sinking of the Titanic. The professor doesn't know why the Titanic sank, but is thinking about different ways it might have. This word is perfect for the TOEFL integrated speaking tasks, so task 3 and 4. While I'm talking about words with two meanings, let's look at stress. This means emotional tension, right? Like, I was stressed because of the big English test. However, it also means emphasize. If you don't know emphasize, put it on your list too. That means to draw attention to a point when you are speaking or writing. For example, the teacher emphasized the importance of studying for the test. That means that the teacher made a big point of telling the students to study. Here's a noun, hypothesis. It refers to an idea that is based on some facts but that hasn't been proven. It isn't 100% certain. You see this word a lot in the reading section. For example, the scientists are investigating a hypothesis about global warming. That means they are studying an idea they have and trying to prove whether it's true or not. It's really important to recognize this word because it's extremely common. It's also long, so makes your vocabulary look really impressive. The next word is assume. This is a good verb when you want to say that you guess something. You have reasons to believe the thing is true, but you don't have proof. For example, I assume that global warming will get worse. I know that global warming exists, but I don't really know the future, do I? So I can't tell for sure, but I believe that it will get worse. You hear this word a lot in the TOEFL listening lectures, and you might see it in TOEFL reading too. Obvious is an adjective to describe something that's really clear and easy to see. Think about speaking task 3. You read a passage and hear a lecture on the same topic. The lecture usually shows that there are problems in the hypothesis given in the passage. That's a perfect situation to use this word. There is an obvious problem in the hypothesis. That means that the idea has a problem that's really easy to see. Here's another awesome adjective, feasible. It means possible. Usually it includes the idea that something is possible to do rather easily. For example, the lecturer gives 3 feasible solutions for the problem in the text. Of course, it works well when it is negative too. The lecturer showed that the solution in the text was not feasible. A slightly different adjective is obsolete. You don't see this as much in the speaking task, but it comes up a lot in the reading section. It's good for TOEFL writing too. That's because obsolete means old and no longer used. However, it doesn't sound bad. Think about the academic discussion writing task. If you say the student's viewpoint is old and not good, you sound negative. So try the student's viewpoint is obsolete. Wow, here you show off your vocabulary and the fact that you can be polite when talking about other people. That's amazing. You use obsolete when you want to show that an argument is not good. In other words, you use it when you refute an argument. Refute is a verb that means prove something is wrong. It can also mean argue against something. If you prove something is wrong, that sounds negative. If you refute it, you sound polite. Try using this in writing task 1. The lecturer refuted the argument in the passage. By the way, if you want more vocabulary videos, hit the like button and write yes in the comments. If you want something else, tell me your video wish in the comments so I know what you would like to see on this channel. Now, let's take a look at 30 more words that help you score high on the TOEFL. Next comes misleading. This is when something makes you think something is true, but it really isn't. This isn't the same as deceptive, which is when someone tells you something wrong in order to try to trick you. Misleading isn't necessarily on purpose. For example, the argument was misleading because it did not include some important points. In this example, the person making the argument may have forgotten the points. Therefore, the argument sounded good. Once you learn the points, you realize it's wrong. Lots of people mix up misleading and deceptive. Show you know the difference to boost your TOEFL score. An inconsistent argument can be misleading. Inconsistent refers to conflicting information or details. For example, if you're talking about the past but use the future tense, it's inconsistent. I could say her spelling was inconsistent because she wrote Harry and Harry. Note that inconsistent is consistent with an in at the front. Do you know what consistent is? It means being the same. That in at the front of the word means not. That's a really useful tip to know. If you see in on a word you don't know, try removing it to see if you know the meaning. Here's another polite word. This one means a small error or problem. Flaw. Like misleading and inconsistent, it's a nice way to point out a problem without sounding impolite. I often use it in speaking task 3, such as, the lecturer points out a flaw in that argument. Vital is another awesome word for describing information. It refers to something that is absolutely necessary. For example, it is vital to find ways to stop global warming. Vital sounds so much more professional than really important, but they mean the same thing. This is an easy one to paraphrase with, so go ahead and try it. Intrinsic is a little different than vital. It refers to a natural but essential part of something. For example, you might say, science is an intrinsic part of education. Often, people refer to the intrinsic value of something, like gold has a high intrinsic value. Even if you sell it for a small amount of money, in reality, it's worth a lot. You can talk about an intrinsic part of an argument too. The argument falls apart if that point is not true. A foundation is the bottom structure of something, like the cement that a house is built on. Arguments have foundations too. That's the first basic idea that the argument is built around. This word is like intrinsic because it's a basic part. However, the foundation is the root or bottom level, and intrinsic doesn't have to be. I can say, the foundation of our government is democracy. An intrinsic part of democracy is freedom. What I am showing you here is that even though some words are similar, there are small differences. If you show that you understand the differences, your score will rise like this. Moving on to another word. Here's circumstance. You have to write and talk about many different situations. The conditions or facts related to that situation are circumstances. Like, the circumstances that led to the Civil War are complicated. In other words, there were many related facts or things that happened related to the situation of the Civil War. Now, you can use this to describe events in your past or present by adding an adjective to circumstance. This is an awesome way to add an example to your writing. For example, the community lived in poor circumstances. It's easy to mix up circumstances and phenomena, but if you can use them properly, your TOEFL score will surely increase. A phenomenon is a particular occurrence or event. For example, the phenomenon of ball lightning is not well understood. As I said, circumstance is a fact around the event, so this sentence could become, the circumstances that caused the phenomenon of ball lightning are not known. See, I just said that the facts or things that cause the ball lightning to occur are not known. If you are talking about a situation that has many different viewpoints, you can call it a controversy. For example, you can say, there is a controversy about where to build the new museum. This adds a deeper level of meaning than just saying situation, because it shows that there is some argument about the topic. The adjective form controversial is also useful. For instance, the professor often talks about controversial topics. It's great to know the noun and adjective form of words, but be sure to use them properly. I want to talk about another pair of words that are often confused. The first is eliminate, which means to get rid of something. It's a strong word because it refers to getting rid of everything. For example, the school eliminated the summer concert. That means there is no summer concert at all. Eliminate is often mixed up with abolish. However, there is a difference. Abolish means that people are not allowed to do something anymore, like the restaurant abolished smoking. That means you're not allowed to smoke in the restaurant. It also sounds like smoking is eliminated, right? That is only partly true. Smoking still exists in the world, and it's possible to happen in the restaurant if someone breaks the rule. In other words, abolish is more like a rule saying something can't happen, while eliminate means that the thing is gone. Pay attention to details like this for a better TOEFL score. I've just talked about getting rid of something. Now I want to share resolve. This word is used to show that a problem is fixed, but that you haven't necessarily gotten rid of it. For example, if your door makes a squeaking noise when you open it, you resolve the problem by adding oil. The door is still there and the noise might come back, but the problem is fixed for a while. Okay, now you're wondering why you need this word for the TOEFL test, right? Here's an awesome sample sentence. Something like this could come up in a lecture in TOEFL Listening, or you may need it in TOEFL Writing. Solar power may not resolve the entire problem of global warming, but it can help reduce the worst effects. While building an argument, you want to reinforce or strengthen your point. You can reinforce an idea using facts that support it. I can say, reinforce your listening skills using podcasts. That means to strengthen your listening skills by listening to podcasts. Reinforce is a useful word because it's an academic way to say make stronger. Here's a word you probably know well, recognize. It refers to knowing something you've seen before, like recognizing your friend. There's a different meaning I want to talk about. The TOEFL often uses this second meaning, so if you know it, it will help in the reading section. Recognize also means to understand or accept something, often a point that someone else says in a debate or argument. I could say, I recognize that you are tired, but you still need to study. In other words, I see that you are tired, but that is not a reason to quit studying. It is often used when discussing solutions to problems like, the city recognizes the need for more bike lanes. You know, I've talked about arguments a few times, but now I want to define the word. This is another one that confuses people because it has two meanings. One is an angry conflict in which people are fighting, like the children are having an argument. The second meaning is when you present your view to try to convince a listener. You use facts to support the argument. You don't yell and scream. This is an important meaning to know. It gives a totally different image to the sentence. The professor's argument was very convincing. This meaning is true for the verb argue too. You present your view logically rather than fighting. This is a really common word used in every section of the TOEFL, so you must know it. Evaluate refers to finding information about something. You look at something's good and bad points to make a decision. For example, I evaluated the hypothesis for flaws. I already talked about hypothesis and flaws. This is an awesome sentence that means I looked for problems in the idea. These vocabulary words really show off your language skills. To evaluate a situation, you need enough information, right? An awesome paraphrase for enough is adequate. For instance, I can say, there is adequate information to evaluate the problem. You can use it for things other than information too. A different sentence using the word is, we had adequate help to complete the project. In other words, enough people came to help. One step above adequate is abundant. That means lots and lots. It often implies more than necessary too, but doesn't have to. For example, butterflies are abundant in the Amazon. There's lots of butterflies in the Amazon. You can find this word in many of the TOEFL sections, particularly reading, because it fits any time there are lots and lots of something. This is another awesome vocabulary word. Relevant means connected. You can use it to show that information is related to the problem that you are talking about. For example, price is a relevant concern when renting an apartment. That means you really need to consider price too when you're renting an apartment. Consequence is a fancy word for result. It's perfect for paraphrasing because you can substitute it easily, and the long word sounds great. For example, I can say, a result of building the airport was more tourism. Now try consequence. A consequence of building the airport was more tourism. Isn't that easy? Implement has two totally different meanings in the TOEFL test. One is a tool. It's common in the reading section about history. For example, you might see, the scientists found stone implements. The other meaning is a verb that means to put into effect. The conversations in the listening sections often use it this way. For example, the policy will be implemented next week. That means that the policy will start next week. If you know these two meanings, you won't be confused by the very different uses. Collaborate refers to working together. It's another long but common word. Try using it to make your sentences sound more complex. For example, 3 students collaborated on the project. This is a lot like cooperate, isn't it? Well, that co at the start means together. Co means together and labor means work. If you see a word you don't know that begins with co, try seeing if this clue helps you solve it. You may know this already, but be sure to add advantage to the list of important words you must know. It's used all the time to mean good point. For example, an advantage to studying is getting a high score. That means that you get the benefit of a high score if you study. One reason I wanted to talk about advantage is that the opposite is disadvantage. Do you see that this on the front? That means not. Something is not an advantage. For example, memorizing complete answers is a disadvantage on a TOEFL test. Don't memorize complete answers. Another great pair to know starts with maximize, which means make as large as possible. Here's a sentence. I want to maximize my TOEFL score. That means I want to make my TOEFL score as high as possible. By contrast, minimize means make as small as possible. For example, I want to minimize the errors in my writing. That means I want as few errors as possible. I'm adding bring up to the list because phrasal verbs are really useful. Bring up is useful because it means mentions or starts a topic. I use it often when discussing the TOEFL speaking conversations. For example, the woman brings up a point about the announcement. Phrasal verbs really show off your vocabulary if you use them correctly. If you mess up, it can make it hard to understand. I suggest that you become comfortable using a few like this and use them. The last 3 words are linking words. It's hard to choose the best since I really love linking words. They are awesome for organizing your ideas. I use however all the time. It shows that I am changing the topic or bringing up new information that may be a surprise. By the way, did you hear that I used bringing up in that sentence? Here's, however, in a pair of sentences. I love reading, however, I don't have much time. The logical ending is I read lots. Therefore, however shows that the following is not expected and that I can't read as much as I want to. Subsequently is another great linking word. I like it because you can substitute it for after that and make your responses sound awesome. For example, the price of gasoline used to be 50 cents a gallon. Subsequently, it increased to over $3 a gallon. Therefore is wonderful because it shows you have reached the end of your discussion. It introduces the logical conclusion of what you have said. For example, I wanted to teach you 44 new vocabulary words. I explained 43. Therefore, this is the last word. That's it. That's 44 words you must know to score 100 plus on the TOEFL. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their TOEFL score too. See you in the next video!